1-800-305-3390 24 hours a day. That's 1-800-305-3390.
This is CNN.
A new week and a new beginning for Wall Street. New York and the nation awake this morning to a changed economy. You're looking at a live picture of the New York Stock Exchange. The New York Stock Exchange and the Mercantile Exchange get ready to open. This is the longest time since the Great Depression that the American exchanges have halted trading. The opening bell will ring, followed by 2 minutes of silence at 9:30 Eastern Time. The New York Board of Trade at 4 World Trade Center was destroyed, but trading resumes today at a backup facility on Long Island. You're looking at ground zero now this morning, where the rescue operations continue. The number of missing at the World Trade Center is at 4,957, 190 confirmed dead, 115 identified, and the Pentagon death toll this morning rises to 188. The mayor of New York City cautioning everybody to view this as a rescue operation, and they will do so until all hope fades. Right now, you're going to look at some aerial views of the devastation surrounding what used to be the Twin Towers at the World Trade Center. I think this is the first time you can really get a perspective on how much damage has been done to the surrounding buildings. City officials tell us at least 100 buildings in that World Trade Center are either damaged or in some way structurally weakened. Good morning, everybody. I'm Paula Zahn reporting from New York City this morning. I have a very strong group of participants with me this morning. Some familiar faces to all of you. I'm joined now by John King in Washington. Good morning, John. Miles O'Brien at the CNN Center in Atlanta, and we keep on moving Bill Hemmer around this city of ours. He will be outside the New York Stock Exchange all morning long. Welcome to you all. Right now I'm going to catch up with Lou Dobbs, who will also join us consistently throughout the morning from the New York Stock Exchange. And Lou, if you could, give us a preview of what investors might expect later on this morning.
Paula, good morning. Investors don't really know what to expect, and the traders who will be peopling this floor at the New York Stock Exchange opened today after being closed for 4 straight sessions. And by the way, that hasn't happened since the Great Depression. People here are anxious. They are not particularly upset in any way, but they are anxious to see what the market will do, what investors ultimately will vote on, and with their dollars and with their stock purchases and sales. The stock exchange has gone to heroic lengths to open at all. And the fact of the matter is that they are remarkably well prepared. This floor is typically, and I'm between the trading posts where the specialists work and move stocks, 10 and 11. Normally, there would be no one on this floor until usually about 9 o'clock in the morning. We've been here since about 6:30 this morning when the Treasury Secretary, Paul O'Neill, arrived to meet with Dick Grasso, the chairman of the New York Exchange. So the anticipation, the preparation, all in place, and some anxiety as well.
So Lou, I know you are immersed in all the details of this, but for those of us who see that overseas markets have sounded an initial alarm and the Nikkei index hit an 18-year low this morning, how are we supposed to react to that news?
I think that we have to react to it today the same way we would on any other day. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the points that most of the heads of the major brokerages, Dick Grasso, the chairman, has said. This is not a place for heroics. This is not a place in which to look at anything other than this marketplace in a long-term manner, which is what investors should be doing on any day. Warren Buffett on 60 Minutes last night made what I thought was a great point. Fundamentally, this economy is not appreciably different than it was a week ago, and the CNN poll conducted yesterday shows that actually investor and consumer confidence is actually higher today than before the bombing. The fact that the Nikkei average fell 5% is at almost a 18-year low is really more indicative of what is happening with those markets than with this one. This market, the largest in the world, and why it was so important, so critical that this market be opened, dwarfing as it does Tokyo, London, Frankfurt, all of the other world markets, those major markets combined, with some $13 trillion in market cap here.
All right, Lou, you mentioned those consumer confidence numbers, and yet there appears to be a very strong networking campaign, bringing together folks that normally are trying to compete with each other to prevent a sell-off today. Can you describe to us exactly what they're doing to prevent a sell-off?
Well, Paula, as you say, there are an interesting group of people who've come together, just as all the American people have come together in this time of crisis. But this crisis here on Wall Street will bring together the head of the SEC, the Treasury Secretary, in fact, the competing exchange, the NASDAQ. The CEO of the NASDAQ, Wick Simmons, will be up on the balcony for the opening bell. They represent the diverse interests that are making certain that these markets are orderly. They cannot, nor would they want to. Dick Grasso, the chairman of the exchange, has made it clear. If people want to sell, they're going to sell. And this is a market, and it's a free market. That's precisely what has to be preserved here. But they are working together with the Fed, the Treasury, with the clearinghouses and all of the firms, the brokerage firms, and specialists here on the floor to make certain that whatever investors want to do is carried out, traded in an orderly manner. And that's the most important thing that we'll see today, irrespective of whether there is volatility or a market that sells off or trades higher. Paula?
All right, Lou, we look forward to talking to you all morning long. I wanted to point out that you will be joining us at the opening of the exchange and filing reports throughout the day. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you.
And Lou mentioned the chairman of the stock exchange, the New York Stock Exchange, Dick Grasso. He will be our guest in the next hour, and we hope to ask him some questions that some of you may have on your minds this morning. But right now we head back to Atlanta, where Miles O'Brien is standing by with some of the latest developments from the investigation desk. Good morning again, Miles.
Good morning, Paula. The latest developments for you, recapping a little bit. Trading resumes this morning on the U.S. financial markets, as Lou was just telling you. They have been closed since the attacks Tuesday by the suicide hijackers, longest closure since the Depression. The confirmed death toll now reaching 190 as the search and rescue operation enters a sixth day in New York City. There are 4,957 people still missing in the rubble of what was the World Trade Center. Still considered a rescue operation, however. At the Pentagon outside Washington, 2 people confirmed dead. 186 are missing and presumed dead. President Bush has returned to the White House after a weekend at Camp David, a weekend of strategy, planning meetings, and coalition-building phone calls. On the eve of the stock market reopening, the president expressed full confidence in the U.S. economy, said it's time for Americans to go back to work. All the major airports except for one, Reagan National Airport in the heart of Washington, D.C., are open this morning. It remains closed, concerns because of its proximity to Washington, D.C. landmarks, but many airlines still have cut back their flight schedules. Things were running at about 2/3 their normal capacity yesterday. New regulations in effect will make it advisable for passengers to arrive a little bit earlier than they expected to. And let's send it back now to Paula in New York.
All right, Miles, we're just beginning to understand how different the work environment is going to be today as people struggle to even get into the area. A bunch of the arteries south of here that would take you into Wall Street are still clogged with staging areas for the rescue operation. Nevertheless, people are going to use creative thinking to get to work today, and I am told that thousands of City Hall and government building workers and many folks in the financial district will be given paper face masks to protect them from the dust and the debris from Ground Zero, where the World Trade Centers once stood. I'm going to check in now with Bill Hemmer, who joins us from outside the New York Stock Exchange to give us a preview on what those workers are going to find if they are successful in getting back into their offices, if those offices even exist. Good morning, Bill.
Paula, good morning to you. You mentioned the commute here. The word of the day thus far is patience. We're talking to a number of people coming off of the Staten Island Ferry here, getting into lower part of Manhattan and really trying to work their way through a maze to figure out where they can go and where they cannot go at this point. Also, if you can tell at this point, the air down here is still very smoky and very dusty. We've seen a number of people walk up and down Broad Street here wearing masks, paper masks, to cover their mouth from that very dust and smoke. You mentioned the other paper masks inside the New York Stock Exchange. We are told that 5,000 will be available for workers and traders inside the New York Stock Exchange today. More importantly, though, we've seen a number of people come by here carrying American flags, wearing ribbons, and wearing lapel pins as well to express their patriotism and their solidarity as they try and get back to work in some sense of normalcy today. It will be extremely difficult. The workers and traders here indeed had family and friends inside the World Trade Center, and for a number of them, it's the first time they have been back to this part of New York City. Let's talk more about it now with Bob McCooey. He's the CEO of Griswold Company, a trader here in New York. Good morning to you, Bob.
Good morning, Bob.
First, on the emotional side, how does it feel for you coming back here? I know you were here this weekend, but also seeing the others stream in as well.
Well, it was a very somber commute this morning. There were a lot more people who were coming in this early and following the chairman's advice and others' advice to come in early and get down here just so they can get through the checkpoints. And I never realized that my New York Stock Exchange ID would become the dog tags of war, but suddenly we're going through a very tough time down here, and it's going to be emotional on a lot of people. And I think the opening this morning is going to be truly emotional for everyone.
Before we talk about trading today and which direction the market may or may not go, have you talked to many others?
Oh, yes. I've been in constant contact with all my people, with others who do the same thing as I do. I've been in contact with the chairman's office as kind of a conduit with a lot of the other independent brokers on the floor. And my wife thinks I had about 1,000 phone calls in and out of our home in the past 4 days. So it's been truly an amazing experience trying to coordinate so many things from a remote location.
We're less than 2.5 hours away from that opening bell. What do you anticipate?
Well, I anticipate from a trading standpoint a lot of volatility, but from a human standpoint, I expect that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be quite upset. There are people who are not going to come in today and may never return to lower Manhattan. I think that the market is better than these people that did this to us, and that the emotion will allow us to get through this, and the fortitude that we have as American people will allow us to succeed.
Thank you, Bob. I noticed the tie, too. Bob McCooey from Griswold Company this morning. Best of luck to you today.
Thanks very much.
Also, throughout the city of Manhattan today, we have reporters staked out a number of locations. Michael Oku is at Ground Zero, just about 2.5 blocks from the World Trade Center. Also, CNN's Martin Savage is talking with commuters getting off the Staten Island Ferry. And Richard Roth parked outside the Brooklyn Bridge this morning. Gentlemen, good morning to all of you. Let's start this morning with Michael Oku. Michael, good morning.
Bill, good morning. You know, as we enter the second week, the catchphrase is a return to normalcy. And in fact, that's exactly what New Yorkers and Americans are trying to do this Monday with the opening of the various financial exchanges. But as New Yorkers awake this Monday morning, they will no doubt return to the nightmare of last Tuesday, made all the more palpable by this plume of rising smoke, which continues to billow out above the ashen, twisted steel and metal of what was once the World Trade Center. 4 million square feet of real estate has been leased by businesses since the attack, but there's no escaping the fact that 4,957 people are still missing, 190 of whom have been confirmed dead, 115 of whom have been identified. Rescue workers say they continue to find more body parts than bodies, and that in fact the rate at which they are finding parts is increasing. They say they stop occasionally during their sometimes 20-hour work shifts listening for sounds, but for days now they say they have only heard the sounds of their own breathing and their excavation. They've removed at this point 22 million tons of debris. The police commissioner says that fires still rage within. Back to you.
Kaloku, and being over there all day yesterday, one can really see the absolute grim task before the workers over there, and sometimes it's hard for the television images to exactly capture what's taking place, but indeed it is very difficult and very grueling. We talked about the commute this morning. CNN's Martin Savage by the Staten Island Ferry, which is again up and running this morning. Marty, how are things thus far?
Morning to you, Bill. Usually the view from Staten Island here of Lower Manhattan is pretty spectacular. It still is, but for all the wrong reasons. As you mentioned, the Staten Island Ferry began its service at 6 o'clock this morning for the first time since the World Trade Center attack. Normally they have about 4 ferries running. They would do about 104 trips a day. That schedule has been altered somewhat. There are only 3 ferries that are operating today. And normally there would be about 700,000 people that use the ferry service to make their commute. It remains to be seen if those numbers will hold up today.